Welcome! This video introduces HIV and CCR5. CCR5 has a naturally occurring gene mutation that provides resistance to HIV. Let's start with the basics. HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. HIV means both the disorder and the virus. In science, names are like signposts. A name points you in the direction of its key characteristics. So for HIV, H, human, HIV infects humans, the V, virus, HIV is a retrovirus, and the I, immunodeficiency, HIV infects and kills immune cells, making the immune response more deficient over time and eventually resulting in sickness and death. You contract HIV through exposure to infected body fluids such as through sexual intercourse, sharing of needles, or quite commonly, birth and breastfeeding from an infected mother. The first stage is acute infection. In this stage, the virus is rapidly reproducing and many people report severe flu-like symptoms. This occurs over a period of months. HIV then progresses from acute infection to clinical latency. In clinical latency, it continues to reproduce at low levels and people experience no or minor symptoms. This stage may last for 2 to 10 years without treatment and many years, even a lifetime with treatment. Without treatment, HIV eventually progresses into AIDS. AIDS is diagnosed when immune cell count has gone below a certain threshold. Without a functioning immune system, a person becomes very susceptible to other infections, such as pneumonia or tuberculosis, and will die 1 to 3 years on average after developing AIDS. Again, you can remember the main points about AIDS using its name. AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. It's acquired over time by HIV reproducing in the body and destroying immune cells. Let's get into the relevant details about HIV and the CCR5 gene. HIV infects CD4 T immune cells, a type of white blood cell. CD4 refers to the CD4 receptor proteins on the outside of these cells that can bind with HIV. HIV cannot enter the cell with the CD4 receptor alone. There is a second membrane protein called a co-receptor. One type of co-receptor is CCR5. There are others, and that will become relevant later in the case study. HIV binds to both CD4 and CCR5 and uses these to enter the cell and reproduce. This results in HIV infection. Now we are getting to the really cool stuff. In the late 1990s, when HIV research was still in its infancy, it was found that some people were not getting HIV even after repeated exposures to the virus. Some of these people had HIV, but their immune cells seemed to be resisting infection. How was this possible? To make a long story short and simplified, the researchers discovered that some people have a mutation in the CCR5 gene that results in an inactive CCR5 co-receptor protein. Common strains of HIV cannot infect these people's immune cells, and they are resistant to HIV. This mutated allele is called CCR5 delta 32 because 32 base pairs are deleted from its DNA. The normal allele is called CCR5+ in comparison. Let's think back to genetics. Pause the video here and try to draw all possible CCR5 genotypes. CCR5 is a gene on chromosome 3. Don't forget that we each have 2 copies of our chromosomes and each can have a different allele of a gene. Remember that the CCR5 gene has a plus allele and a 32 allele. Most people have 2 copies of the plus allele. Their genotype is plus. They are homozygous for CCR5+. Some people have 1 plus allele and 1 32 allele. Their genotype is plus 32. They are heterozygous for both alleles. A very few people have 2 copies of the 32 allele. Their genotype is 32-32. They are homozygous for CCR5-32. Let's review that the genotypes for the CCR5 gene are plus 32, and 32-32. Based on what you have learned earlier about how the different alleles of the CCR5 protein affect HIV infection, can you predict the phenotypes for each of these genotypes? People with the plus genotype get HIV normally. People with the 32-32 genotype are resistant to common, although not all, strains of HIV. What do you think happens to people with the heterozygous genotype? Like most real genes, the dominance relationship is complicated for CCR5, but think about what the phenotypes might tell you about the possible dominance relationships. People with the plus 32 genotype have some resistance to HIV, in that HIV progresses more slowly in these individuals. This tells us there must be some incomplete or co-dominance between the CCR5 alleles. In our case study, we will be exploring the very interesting relationships among CCR5, HIV, evolution, and human health. As we start our case study, keep this question in mind. If CCR5 delta 32 is so great, why isn't it more common?